So let's see.
Hi, I'm Limey, and that scientific illiterate was Rachie 50. I'd only found out about Rachie 50 a couple of months ago, although it seems that she's been part of Flat Earth for at least a year. I've covered her content before and even had some chats with her in comments and live chat. At first, she seemed to be quite a polite person, maybe a little bit naive. She kind of came across as someone who was still unsure about what she believed. However, after a short while, either her attitude shifted or she started showing her true colours. The interactions, quite honestly, started to resemble those I'd had with Anthony Sleepy TikTok Predator Riley. And indeed, so do the majority of her arguments, as does her complete and utter scientific misunderstanding. With this level of derp in mind, let's take a look at some of the videos from Rachie 50 is still 0.
First of all, I would like to say that I am a flat earther, so welcome to the non-rotating, non-oblate spheroid.
Hang on a minute, let's examine that again.
So welcome to the non-rotating, non-oblate spheroid.
Welcome to the non-rotating, non-oblate spheroid.
I'm not sure if you realise this, Rachie, but wording is very important. Normally, I might not pull you up on this, but seeing as all flat earthers are just renowned for taking things out of context, I figured, what the hell.
People have been asking me questions because I've got on some YouTube videos that the reason things fall is because of density and not gravity, as that's what I believe. I believe that I can possibly prove that.
So you, like your mentor, Riley, believe in this RDD nonsense over gravity, but you also admit that you haven't proven it yet. You see, here's the thing. Normally, we believe things because of evidence.
Like Neil deGrasse Tyson, they'll say this falls because of gravity, because mass attracts mass. I say this falls because it's more dense than the air surrounding it.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
Helium, for example, that rises. Why does it rise? Because it's less dense than air.
Exactly. This is explained using buoyancy, which does take density into account, but it also needs gravity. However, density is not needed when we calculate something falling, because it's not falling because of density.
I can prove that it's not mass attracts mass, because you can have as much mass of helium as you want, and gravity will never attract it.
Gravity attracts everything with mass, even helium. But when the air around it is denser, this causes a displacement as the denser air is pulled down around the helium, for example, and then it pushes it, creating an upward force, which is buoyancy.
So I have been both a flat earther and a globe earther several times over the past few months. I believe that I am a total flat earther, especially believing that gravity doesn't exist. I mean, I think I've pretty much proved mass doesn't attract mass, so...
Hold the fucking phone. How did we get from here
I can prove that it's not mass attracts mass.
to here?
I mean, I think I've pretty much proved mass doesn't attract mass, so...
In 27 seconds? What, you think you proved it by dropping your remote control?
If gravity doesn't exist, then they say gravity is why planets are spheres, then if gravity doesn't exist, then that's not the reason that they are spheres, and maybe they aren't spheres, or at least the Earth isn't a sphere.
We don't just have gravity though, do we? We have objects disappearing over the horizon, star trails, eclipses, seasons, pictures from space. What's the whole proof behind flat Earth? It looks flat to me. Fuck me running.
People ask me, well, why doesn't the object go up? So, for example, why wouldn't this rise to the less dense air? Well, it doesn't want to rise to the less dense air. It wants to go to its own density and away from less dense air. So
No flat earther when trying to explain this relative density. No flat earther when trying to explain this relative density disequilibrium nonsense seems to understand that without gravity there is no reason for the denser objects to be pulled towards Earth. In fact, there'd be no reason for Earth to actually stay together at all, because again, without gravity there'd be no order from more to less dense as you go up. There needs to be something that distributes objects by their density, and that is gravity. You can't just say things go down because reasons. Rachie goes on to show us some equations that she's come up with. She does this at length. So I'm just going to show the equations and explain some of the issues that I have with them. Here Rachie is separating liquids and gases. They are both considered fluids, so there's no reason to separate them. But hey, whatever floats your boat. We also don't need to separate them when we're using their density. The density for all liquids, gases and solids, it's all calculated the same way. It's mass divided by volume.
But then you will get stuck then, because then they ask about how does a boat float on water? Well, for that I came up with this equation. So the ms is the mass of the solid, so that would be the mass of the boat. The dsl is the density of the surrounding liquid. The bs is the volume submerged.
This is editing Limey here. I misheard Rachie when she did this bit, so I'm removing the part where, because I basically thought that she said the density of the fluid and then multiplied it by its volume, which obviously would take it back to the mass. So I do apologise for that, and I think I made that error before in one of my other videos. I don't know, maybe my hearing's going with my old age. But basically what she's saying is that, you know, she's working out if the mass of the solid, you know, or boat, I think as she's describing it, is larger or greater than or less than the density of the fluid multiplied by the volume of the object that is submerged, you know, or the volume, the submerged volume, sorry, of the object. Good lord. Anyway, so when we're calculating buoyant force, we take the submerged volume of the object in question, we multiply it by the density of the fluid and by gravitational acceleration. We have to include both because they are two separate things, and again, this, you know, just throws another complete spanner in the entire RDD argument. If you know, if density worked on its own without gravity, we wouldn't need to account for them separately. So, you know, just like she has with basically any equation that she's ever seemed to do on her channel, she's taking existing equations, which we know work because they've been tested to death, and just trying to change them to, you know, either remove gravity or just kind of fit her narrative. Yeah, epic fail. Rachie then goes on to say that weight and mass are the same thing. This can be easily disproved by weighing the same object at different elevations. As you take an object higher, its weight gets less and less because it is getting further away from the center of the earth, thus reducing the effect of gravity on it. The mass does not change, but the weight does. And why? Because weight is mass times gravitational acceleration.
Somebody couldn't see the contradiction.
This one's getting annoying. I mean, who listens to a telly or video or wherever it is this loud while they're making a video? So let's just speed round some more of the funny parts and then we'll move on to the next one.
The contradiction was the fact that you say there's no gravity on the International Space Station and that's why they float, but yet the International Space Station is falling because of gravity. So obviously gravity is affecting the International Space Station because they are falling, which means that they shouldn't even be floating. So, and in fact, I'll actually link a video where the one lady astronaut says from the International Space Station actually says that it's like 10% less on the International Space Station, the gravity, than it is on Earth. It's like 8.77 meters per second squared. So they should actually be falling faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster because they've been up there 20 years. So the rate they should fall right now should be tremendous. Somebody asked me, have I ever used an elevator before? When you go up, you feel heavier, and when you go down, you feel lighter. That's true. When you do go up, you do feel heavier, and when you do go down, you do feel lighter. But do you feel that feeling when you're going up, or do you feel that feeling when you're going down? Like right now, standing still on the floor? No. So that to me says that the Earth isn't moving up, and the Earth isn't moving down. So that says to me that the Earth is stationary. I
don't think you understand conservation of momentum and inertial reference frames.
Somebody says to me, weightlessness doesn't mean that you don't have weight, but it means that it's what you physically feel. But to that I would say, well, people take drugs and they feel weightless, or they feel they are floating and they haven't took away gravity, it's just a feeling in their head. So in that case you could assume that weight is just a feeling in your head.
Wow, wow. The feelings that you get from drugs are due to their effect on the brain. This would go as far as sensations that the brain controls, such as feeling things on your skin or the sensation of floating. Also, you feel weight from force contact, as in if you're touching a surface. But I'm starting to see the problem here. You assume too much and understand too little. I think I've had enough of this video. Let's move on.
I originally came to flat Earth because I thought gravity isn't real.
What made you think that gravity wasn't real in the first place? I would guess that it was just not understanding it. It seems that many flat earthers reach their conclusions because of a lack of understanding. And instead of trying to learn things from people that actually understand what they're talking about, they choose to try and learn it for themselves. This is not necessarily a bad thing, as trying to figure out things for ourselves is how things get discovered. But if you don't understand what you're doing, if you don't understand the scientific method, if you don't first try to understand what we already know, then how can you ever really know that our current knowledge is wrong?
And if gravity isn't real, then you can't be stuck upside into a ball.
There is no under the ball. There's under your feet. We're all pulled towards the center of Earth, the center of mass. Again, you need to understand what you're disagreeing with. Otherwise, how can you ever have a valid opinion?
So then I started to think, well, if gravity isn't real, then why do things fall? So then I started to think, well, things fall because of density. So what's the difference between hydrogen and helium? And everything else pretty much density. So more dense down, less dense up. I made a video on that, and I stick by that video to an extent. So density does definitely play a part. Buoyancy definitely does not play a part because gravity is not a force, so buoyancy cannot be the opposing force to gravity because gravity isn't a force. It can be thought of as a force, but it isn't a force. So buoyancy doesn't exist, it's just density. Or relative density, I suppose.
F equals ma. Force is equal to mass times acceleration, which, when we're talking about falling, for example, the A is obviously gravitational acceleration. This, combined with the mass, equals the force, and that's why we think of gravity as a force. Sadly, that's about the only thing you got right. Buoyancy is an upward force, and again, it is because of gravity pulling everything down. It has more of an effect on larger masses, on denser objects, that it pulls them around, and this creates an upward force, pushes the less dense objects up. That is buoyant force.
So then, why do I think it's flat? Water always finds level's horizontal, so flat Earth. I know Ball is saying no, levels conforming to the curvature of the Earth, and the water bends because gravity acts on each individual molecule, pulling down each individual molecule.
Yes, gravity does act on individual molecules, but remember, gravity is working on mass. If you've got lots of water molecules together, the bigger that gets, the more the mass, the more it is affected by gravity, as the individual molecules on their own don't really have much mass.
But that doesn't work because then the moon would be pulling each individual molecule and not the mass of the sea as a whole. So then the gravity of the moon would be acting on a small mass of molecules, each individually, instead of it as a whole. So no.
What the hell is wrong with you people?
Yet the moon's gravitational pull is also acting on individual molecules, and by default the overall things that these molecules make. But obviously it does not have as strong a pull as the Earth. How are you not grasping this?
There is, I think, definitely a downward acceleration, because this is hard to explain, but you've got like the 9.8 meters per second squared in the vacuum, and that number comes from somewhere. It falls at that rate for a reason. I'm not sure of that reason.
Gravity, you fucking retard! Gravity! Have you ever heard of fucking gravity? Gravity! Gravity!
To me, density could attract density. And there's something very dense underneath us.
And how exactly does density attract density? And in that case, why doesn't it just attract everything?
But I don't know.
You're right, you don't know. So maybe stop acting like you understand everything and start learning from people that do. Tell you what, as you seem to think that you understand science and reality better than the majority of the planet, let's check out a couple of videos. One, let's be nice and call it an experiment, and one, demonstration, and see if you can help teach us globers the way.
Okay, so we have a density tower, just a little one. Oil pretty much, and water and soap. And it does have a pencil and a Nerf gun end in there. I was doing other experiments and freezing it, doing it in a different way. Didn't work, obviously, but worth a try, right? But yeah, this is a density tower. I'm going to do another dot test with it and see whether this mixes. So we've got yellow on top and green, so we just need to remember yellow and green. If it mixes, obviously there shouldn't be yellow on top and green there, so we'll see what happens. So let's see. So unless it needs to fall for longer, what is the precise amount of time that it needs to fall? Out of breath to mix, because mine didn't mix on 2 different occasions.
Well, that was something. Let me explain it for you, Rachie. You haven't eliminated gravity. Nice try, though. Next!
So the globers love to say that no celestial pole and the same celestial pole is no evidence or proof of the globe Earth because you've got a anti-clockwise and a clockwise rotation. Therefore, globe Earth. They can't see how it happens on a flat Earth. They can't open their mind enough.
The issue is not whether or not we can open our minds. The issue is that it's just not possible on a flat Earth. But please, do go on.
So, for me, actually, I haven't actually heard anybody come up with a reason, an explanation here. But for me, I believe the North Pole is one side, South Pole is the other side. So then obviously the North Celestial Pole and South Celestial Pole are rotating. And then, let's say you're at the equator between the two. You look towards the North Pole, you see it rotating anti-clockwise. You look towards the South Pole, you see it rotating clockwise. There's your difference is done. They're rotating the same way, but they appear to rotate different ways. And that's how you get clockwise and anti-clockwise on flat Earth with celestial poles. Stop using it as evidence of globe Earth, because it's not. It's not proof. It's not evidence. It can happen on flat Earth.
No, it really doesn't work on a flat Earth, and here's why. Let's say that this works at the equator just as you said, which it doesn't. It's very different. But if it did, it means that you're saying it would look like this at the North Pole if you were facing directly at it, say. Obviously, well, trying to do it. Trying to be the stars for me. It might not work for you, but anyway, let's just say we're going. For me, this is counterclockwise. All right, I can't really be bothered to work out how it's going to look with the camera. It's confusing me today. So let's just say you're looking at it this way. Okay, like as me, it's moving counterclockwise. Right now, if you travel clockwise around your flat Earth, let's say the 90 degrees, travel quarter of the planet along the equator. Now it's going to look like this, coming towards you from the top. Okay? Then you travel to opposite of where you were on the equator, so a full 180 from your starting position, and now it's going the other way. This is why it doesn't work on a flat Earth. The problem that you'd have is that it just cannot possibly work on a flat Earth with everyone being able to see it from their different locations in the way that we do. It is impossible. This is why star trails are a fantastic proof for the globe. And it's one of the things that led us to realizing we lived on a sphere many years ago. It's just like everything else. The fact of the matter is, the reasons that everything works on a globe and, well, nothing works on a flat Earth, but you kind of think that a few things do, but the reason that everything works on a globe is because we live on a fucking globe. Next video.
Okay, so according to the heliocentric model, buoyancy is the reason things go up. Let's listen.
A classic sci-fi question. All right, let's check it out. So, Stephen, will we ever have the ability to travel backwards in time? I'm thinking not, simply because if we ever did obtain that ability, we would have met somebody by now from the future.
I hate to interrupt, Rachie, but are you fucking serious? She's going to use a speculative conversation on the possibility of time travel to argue against buoyancy. I honestly don't think this is going to go well.
One might hope that we could warp space-time so that one could go off in a rocket and come back in the past. But I have shown that this is not possible if energy density is always non-negative. I'm
gonna skip some bits here because, as interesting as a conversation as it is, she leaves a lot of it in between speaking, and I'm just gonna condense it down and save some time. So all we need to know before we get into it is that in order to travel through time, we would need to be able to create negative energy density.
For a physicist, it is negative matter and negative energy. Things that fall up rather than falling down.
Okay, I think I'm seeing one problem here. Rachie seems to think that when things rise, it's like they're falling up, but no, they're being pushed up because of a downward pull. Oh dear, Rachie. YouTube videos and your fellow flirfs are not the best places to learn. She lets this spin on for a while, so we'll jump ahead again.
Right, didn't Hawking once come up with a
choice.
backwards time travel conjecture so that you don't have this Marty McFly problem?
Chronology protection conjecture.
And what does that protect?
It protects the order of causal events so that you are unable, even if there exists mathematically on paper the possibility to go back in time, you can't kill your mother before you.
Even if it exists mathematically on paper, it's not possible.
Cool.
And here, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binaries, is one of the main reasons that people fall for these conspiracy theories. They don't understand a fucking thing they watch or listen to, and so cherry pick the little bits that they think make sense to them in some way, and they're like, yeah, that must be what they mean. This is why, although you can learn some things from YouTube, you shouldn't try to gain all of your knowledge there. It should be obvious that one of the reasons schooling works so well is because it gives students access to someone, as in their teacher, that understands, someone that they can pose questions to, or just say, you know, I don't quite understand this. Can you please explain it to me a little better? If school was about students just believing that they know everything already and just going about it however they deem fit, society would collapse. Again, let's skip ahead a bit.
Time is constantly forking so that our universe, being a bubble that expands, can actually become a multiverse like in a soap bubble. So a soap bubble bath. Think of lots of bubbles bifurcating, colliding with each other, and that's the Big Bang. The Big Bang.
Lots of bubbles colliding with each other. That's the Big Bang. So the Big Bang is now collision. No longer an explosion or an expansion, it's now a collision.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Rachie, you just keep proving my point. What he said is you can think about soap bubbles in a bath. They're bifurcating and colliding. Bifurcating basically in this sense means, you know, splitting into two. So they're doing this, they're splitting into smaller bubbles, and sometimes they collide and become bigger bubbles again. And this is basically what happened during the expansion. Can she just get any more ridiculous? We're skipping ahead in this one. Again, she doesn't talk much, but it was just too appalling not to include.
If time travel, it may not be possible unless we have this negative energy density stuff.
This is something I can be showing
that negative energy
it may be possible for us all the day we harness
That's right.
this
In the
negative
far
energy stuff.
future.
But that is sometime in the future at a point unknown.
So, yeah. And I'd say it always comes back to density as well in most things.
So how the fuck did this come back to density? Oh, you mean because he said energy density? This is why you shouldn't talk about stuff you don't understand. Or look to YouTube to try and find things to prove your impossibility, because that's all flat earth is an impossibility. Energy density is a term used in physics to describe the amount of energy in a system per unit volume. You're basically taking energy and dividing it by volume to get energy density. I think that's me at boiling point, so I'm off. If you want to see the previous time I did a video on Rachie, please click here. I've been Limey. Take care of each other and stay safe.